Have you ever felt disrespected and not knowing how to react? In the midst of the chaos of everyday life, facing disrespect can be one of the greatest trials for our inner peace. What to do when someone crosses the line or when an insult seems to shake your balance? How to transform these challenges into opportunities for growth and serenity. Today we're going to explore the 9 best Stoic lessons for dealing with disrespect, have a better day, and find peace in life. This video will guide you through deep principles of Stoic philosophy, offering practical and reflective strategies for confronting disrespect and staying calm. First, understand the source of disrespect and how it reflects the insecurities of others. Next, we'll cover distant observation, a technique for maintaining composure when dealing with taunts. Next, elevation and clarity will show us how to keep a broader view of difficult situations. You will learn to stick ahead, maintaining your dignity without getting carried away by anger. You will learn how to use the deep listening mastery, where we will see how active listening can transform the dynamics of a conversation. Full acceptance will teach us to embrace disrespect as an inevitable part of life, while setting clear boundaries will help us protect our dignity. Thinking about oneself will lead us to reflect on our role in interactions and how we can improve. Let's also play with the situation, using humor to diffuse tension, and finally free yourself from this disrespect with forgiveness. Discovering how forgiveness is the key to true inner peace, you will understand what these lessons can do for you, why they are essential for maintaining inner peace, and how to apply them to transform your day and your life. Get ready for a reflective and practical journey, where each Stoic lesson is not just a theory, but a powerful tool to live better and with more serenity. Discover the Providence. Take a moment to reflect on the impact of the words you receive on a daily basis. How many times have you found yourself reacting to an acidic comment or unfair criticism? It's natural for the words of others to resonate in our minds, as if they have the power to shape our perception of ourselves. But what happens when we take these interactions personally? The answer is simple. We become prisoners of the limited vision of the other, feeding a cycle of pain, insecurity, and reactivity. This, however, does not have to be our destiny. In Stoicism, one of the fundamental premises is the understanding that we have no control over the opinions of others, but we can choose how to react to them. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, reminds us that when someone offends us, the offense itself has no power over us unless we allow it to penetrate our consciousness and disturb our inner peace. True strength lies in transcending the ego, in not over-identifying with the I and its emotional reactions. By realizing that disrespect is often more related to the insecurities and limitations of those who offend than to ourselves, we gain a new perspective. The person who insults may be projecting their own pain, their own suffering. Thus, reacting with anger or resentment only feeds the cycle of negativity. Instead, the wise choose compassion. This is a powerful choice, one that transforms the way we live and interact with the world. When someone tries to hurt us with words, we can respond with dignity and tranquility, without being shaken. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, emphasizes that the best revenge is to be different from the one who caused the injury. By not allowing ourselves to fall into the same trap of reactivity, we show that we are governed by reason, not impulsiveness. This does not mean accepting disrespect or injustice, but rather rising above them, demonstrating that our value is not in the opinions of others, but in our own integrity and self-control. Remember that most people who offend are not intended to hurt, but rather to deal with their own internal battles. This does not justify them, but it does give us a basis for choosing compassion over anger. As Seneca said, there is no greater proof of a well-ordered mind than the ability to stop, reflect, and act on the basis of reason. Cultivating this skill is essential for personal growth and maintaining inner peace. Transcending the ego is the key to living a fuller and more meaningful life. When we stop identifying with the ego and its automatic reactions, we gain freedom. Freedom to choose how to respond to the world. Freedom not to let ourselves be dragged into the whirlwind of negative emotions. and it is in this freedom that true power resides. So don't be a fool who responds with more foolishness. Be a sage who understands that true value lies in serenity and compassion. Ignore the insult, transcend the ego, and move forward with your head held high, knowing that inner peace cannot be shaken by empty words. After all, as the Stoics teach us, what really matters is your virtue, not the opinion of others. Distant remark. In moments of tension, practice distancing. Imagine that you are observing the situation from the outside, as a spectator. This helps to decrease emotional intensity and make wiser decisions. Stoic logic suggests that you ask yourself, does this offense really affect me, or is it just a reflection of the other's own pains and failings? As you do this, you begin to see that offenses do not have the power you imagined. They are like shadows that only have form if we give them light. Now imagine for a moment that you are in the midst of a storm. Strong winds, deafening thunder, a torrential rain that threatens to sweep you away. This scenario may well represent our emotions in times of conflict, when we are confronted with disrespect, criticism, or hurtful words. The natural tendency is to drown in this emotional storm, reacting impulsively, letting ourselves be carried away by the whirlwind of feelings that invade our being. But what if there was a way to distance yourself from this storm, to observe everything from the outside, instead of being swept away by it? This is the essence of contemplative detachment. At the heart of contemplative detachment is the ability to observe oneself and one's emotions with perspective. This concept, deeply rooted in Stoicism, invites us to be spectators of our own lives, to look at our emotional reactions as if we were watching a movie. By adopting this posture of observer, we are able to realize that our emotions, although intense, are temporary and do not need to define our actions. They come and go like passing clouds, and it's up to us to decide whether to cling to them or let them run their course. Epictetus, in his teachings, suggests that we should not completely identify with our emotions, especially in moments of disrespect. He reminds us that emotions are just automatic responses, not necessarily reflections of reality. When someone offends or disrespects us, the pain we feel is not indicative of our true nature, but rather a reaction that we may choose not to nurture. This is where contemplative detachment becomes a powerful tool. By practicing it, we gain the ability to see our emotions without getting lost in them, allowing reason to guide our decisions. This distancing does not mean ignoring or repressing our emotions. On the contrary, it is a matter of recognizing them without letting ourselves be dominated by them. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the importance of seeing what lies beyond appearances. For him, the practice of contemplative distancing was a way of remembering that emotions, no matter how strong, do not define who we are. By observing our reactions with serenity, we are able to act more consciously and deliberately, without being slaves to our emotions. Contemplative detachment also teaches us to see disrespect in a new light. When someone acts in an offensive way, it's easy to react with anger or resentment. However, by practicing distancing, we can see that disrespect often reveals more about the other person than about ourselves. Those who treat us poorly may be dealing with their own pains, insecurities, or frustrations. By understanding this, we free ourselves from the need to react defensively and can choose inner peace over conflict. In addition, this practice allows us to cultivate empathy. When we distance ourselves from our own emotions, we can begin to see situations from the perspective of others. This does not mean justifying disrespect, but rather understanding that the actions of others are often reflections of their internal battles. This understanding gives us the freedom to choose compassion over reactivity, strengthening our ability to forgive and move forward without bearing the brunt of others' offenses. Contemplative detachment leads us to a more balanced and harmonious life. By becoming observers of ourselves, we gain clarity about our motivations and reactions, and this clarity allows us to live up to our highest values. As Seneca said, what we really need is not greater control over the external world, but rather over our own mind. When we distance ourselves from emotional storms, we can navigate life with more serenity making decisions based on wisdom and discernment rather than passing impulses. So the next time you find yourself in the middle of an emotional storm, remember that you have the power to step back and observe. Don't completely identify with your emotions. They are only a temporary part of your experience, not the totality of who you are. Practice contemplative detachment. See your emotions with perspective and discover the freedom that comes from not being governed by them. By doing so, you will not only become stronger in the face of disrespect, but you will also cultivate a life of greater peace and balance. Elevation and clarity. Imagine that you are in a vast field where the horizon stretches infinitely, beyond the range of your vision. In this scenario, each small stone, each fallen leaf seems insignificant in the face of the immensity around it. So is life when you adopt a broader, more inclusive worldview, where ego worries dissolve in the pursuit of a higher purpose. When we anchor ourselves in something more meaningful than our own insecurities and desires, we gain a perspective that transforms the way we face the challenges and disrespects that life inevitably presents us. The transcendence of the ego is the first step on this path. The ego, with its incessant demands for recognition, status, and validation, keeps us stuck in a never-ending cycle of reactivity. We are easily provoked by the disrespect of others because the ego feels each affront as a direct attack on our essence. However, when it finds a greater purpose, something that goes beyond ourselves, the ego loses its dominance. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, advises us to ask ourselves, how does this relate to our mission in life? When we turn to this question, the offenses seem trivial as they are disconnected from what really matters. Adopting a broader worldview means recognizing that we are part of something much bigger. Seneca, the great Stoic sage, invites us to look at life as a journey towards the common good, where every action and every reaction must be guided by reason and virtue. When we broaden our horizon, we stop focusing on the small battles of everyday life and start seeing the bigger picture. Then disrespect becomes opportunities for growth, moments that challenge us to practice patience, compassion, and resilience. Instead of reacting with anger or hurt, we can choose to use these situations as stepping stones on our journey to becoming better human beings. Finding a higher purpose also helps us stay focused on what really matters beyond the circumstances. When we connect with a cause or a goal that resonates deeply within our being, the distractions of everyday life lose their appeal. The offenses and disrespects, which once seemed like insurmountable mountains, are now nothing more than small stones in the way. As Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Whoever has a reason to live can endure almost any how. This why is what sustains us when external circumstances try to divert us from our path." In addition, by adopting this broader view, we begin to see disrespect as an opportunity for inner growth. Each offense received is a chance to practice detachment, to strengthen our ability not to react automatically, to maintain our serenity in the face of adversity. Stoicism teaches us that the true test of character is not in times of ease, but in the difficulties we face. And what better opportunity to demonstrate this strength than in moments of disrespect? By keeping our higher purpose in mind, we are able to transcend the temptation to return offense for offense, and instead rise above provocations like an eagle that flies high, far from the storms below. Transcendence and purpose lead us to a life in which we are guided by wisdom and virtue, rather than ego and fleeting emotions. By finding a higher purpose, we not only protect ourselves from the trappings of the ego, but also become more connected with humanity as a whole. This connection expands our empathy, allows us to understand that each human being faces their own battles, and that the disrespect we receive is often not personal, but rather a reflection of the other's internal difficulties. With this understanding, we gain the freedom to forgive, to move forward, and to stay focused on what really matters, living up to our highest values and contributing to the common good. So as you walk through life, remember that you have the power to transcend the ego and find a purpose that gives meaning to every action and reaction. Take a broader view that goes beyond immediate circumstances and use disrespect as an opportunity to strengthen your character. Keep your gaze fixed on the horizon, where your true purpose lies, and allow that vision to guide your decisions, staying firm on what really matters. Because at the end of the day, it is this search for something greater that gives us the strength to live with dignity, peace, and resilience, regardless of the storms we may face. Master deep listening. Sometimes the most unexpected and transformative reaction to disrespect is the one that demands less from our voice and more from our ears. When someone insults us or acts disrespectfully, the natural tendency is to defend ourselves, react instantly, or even walk away to avoid further confrontation. But Stoicism, with its age-old wisdom, offers us a different, more powerful and effective approach, the practice of active listening. This may sound counterintuitive after all. Why should we listen to someone who verbally assaults us? However, by opening our ears, we are actually opening the doors to a deeper understanding, both of the other and of ourselves. Active listening is much more than simply listening to the words that are spoken to us. It is a process of total involvement, where we seek to understand the concerns and feelings that are behind these words, even if they come wrapped in disrespect or anger. When we dedicate ourselves to listening attentively, without interruptions and without getting carried away by our own reactive emotions, we can often identify what is really going on in the other's mind. Harsh words can be just the surface of an ocean of frustrations, fears, and pain that the person is facing, and listening carefully can reveal these hidden layers. Epictetus taught us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can hear more and speak less. This teaching reminds us that wisdom is not in speaking first, but in understanding first. When someone treats us with disrespect, the initial impulse is to defend our position or fight back. But active listening invites us to pause, to restrain our words, and to focus on the other. By listening, we not only show respect, but we also signal that we are interested in understanding the root of the problem, even if that root is masked by disrespect. Practicing active listening, however, does not mean that we are justifying or accepting disrespectful behavior. Far from it. Active listening is a tool to promote understanding and empathy, not to legitimize negative attitudes. By listening carefully, we can defuse potentially explosive situations, showing that we will not be swept away by the tide of negative emotions. Instead of letting ourselves be affected by the behavior of the other, we keep our calm stoic and respond with curiosity and compassion. Not only does this approach protect our own inner peace, but it can also pave the way for more effective communication and conflict resolution. Additionally, active listening can reveal valuable information that would otherwise remain hidden. By listening, we may discover that the disrespectful person is facing issues that we were unaware of, or that their anger may have little to do with us and a lot to do with their own internal struggles. This discovery allows us to not only better cope with the situation, but also develop a deeper understanding of the human being that is in front of us. Viktor Frankl, in his search for the meaning of life, taught that between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our answer. In our response is our growth and our freedom. Active listening offers us this space, where we can choose how to react in a conscious and thoughtful way, rather than being driven by our immediate emotions. The practice of active listening also requires a significant dose of emotional intelligence. It is not easy to hear someone who offends or disrespects us, but it is precisely at this moment that our inner strength is tested and improved. By listening, we are not just trying to understand the other. At the same time, we are strengthening our ability to remain calm and not allow the behavior of others to dictate our emotions and actions. This practice is an exercise in self-control, where we keep our dignity intact, even in challenging situations. However, we should not confuse active listening with passivity. Active listening does not mean that we should tolerate disrespect indefinitely. Rather, it means that we are choosing to respond in a more informed and conscious way after fully understanding the situation. If necessary, we can and should set clear boundaries, but these boundaries will be most effective when set from a position of understanding and calm rather than reactivity. Active listening is a practice that allows us to turn potential conflicts into opportunities for growth. By listening carefully and empathetically, we not only diffuse the situation, but also gain valuable insights about the other and ourselves. This approach helps us maintain our inner peace, respond more rationally, and strengthen our emotional intelligence. It is in this space of listening that we find the power to choose our response and, with it, our path to growth and freedom. Stand firm. When we face situations of disrespect or insult, the first reaction that often arises within us is to fight back, to react impulsively, as if our honor were at stake. The anger that consumes us in these moments seems righteous, even necessary, to restore a sense of balance and justice. However, it is precisely in these moments that the danger lurks, as immediate reactivity can lead us down a path of hasty decisions and lasting consequences. True strength is not in responding with equal intensity, but in staying calm, in resisting the urge to act on the emotion of the moment. Staying calm in the midst of provocation is an act of deep self-control. Stoicism teaches us that anger is a weakness of the mind, a temporary loss of reason. Seneca, in his work on wrath, argues that anger, even when justified, should be avoided. This is because by giving in to anger, we allow our actions to be governed by an unstable and destructive state of mind, which often results in regret. When someone insults us, the real power lies in our ability to take a deep breath, to take a step back both physically and mentally, and to observe the situation clearly, as if we were looking at a chessboard where every move must be carefully calculated to avoid unwanted consequences. This deliberate calm is not a sign of weakness but of wisdom. By separating our emotions from the situation, we begin to see that more often than not, the insult or disrespect we receive is not worthy of an immediate response. In fact, many of these situations dissipate on their own when we don't fan the flame with our anger. Stoicism invites us to reflect on the following. Is it really the act of disrespect that harms us, or is it our interpretation of the act that causes us pain? By internalizing this truth, we begin to realize that we have the power to choose how to react to each provocation. Staying calm also allows us to see the offending behavior for what it really is, a projection of the other person's own pain, insecurities, and limitations. When someone disrespects us, this action reflects more on who offends than on who is offended. It's essential to remember that someone's opinion of you doesn't define your true worth. Just as a distorted mirror does not reflect the real image, the words of those who insult us do not reflect our true essence. By adopting this perspective, we gain armor against the arrows of disrespect and remain unshaken, protected by the understanding that the judgment of others does not have the power to define us. This change in perspective is transformative. By recognizing that we don't have to react to every provocation, we gain the freedom to choose our battles. Instead of responding to every insult, we can choose to preserve our inner peace by allowing anger to dissipate without affecting us. This does not mean that we should accept disrespect or tolerate injustice. Rather, it means that we must approach these situations with dignity and self-control, not allowing momentary emotions to distract us from our principles. Being calm in the face of disrespect is a clear sign of inner strength. When we remain serene, we demonstrate that we are not easily influenced by external factors, that our internal balance is not at the mercy of the actions of others. This puts us in a position of authority over ourselves, where our reactions are the result of conscious choice and not of uncontrollable impulses. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best way to take revenge on an enemy is not to resemble him. Staying calm allows us to act wisely, without falling into the same traps of anger and resentment that have been thrown at us. Take a deep breath, look at the situation from a broader perspective, and choose your actions carefully. By doing so, you not only protect your serenity, but you also demonstrate that you are governed by reason rather than the impulses of the moment. Calm is the most powerful response you can offer in the midst of the storm of disrespect. It not only preserves their dignity, but also reaffirms their commitment to wisdom and virtue, values that no insult can corrupt. Full acceptance. Life in all its complexities inevitably presents us with moments of disrespect, regardless of who we are or the path we take. From our first steps in childhood to our last in old age, all of us at some point face the weight of disdain, inconsiderateness, or hostility from others. It doesn't matter how kind, righteous, or strong we are. Disrespect is a constant that crosses the different phases of human existence. It is an inescapable reality, an inherent part of the experience of living. However, while the source of this disrespect can often seem cryptic, Stoicism invites us to focus on what really matters, our response to it. Accepting that disrespect is an inevitable part of life is not an act of resignation or passivity, but an active choice to break free from the cycle of frustration and resentment. When we recognize that we have no control over the actions of others, but that we can always choose how we react, we gain invaluable inner freedom. This acceptance, inspired by Stoic principles, does not mean allowing others to treat us badly, but rather keeping our serenity and dignity intact, regardless of external circumstances. From this perspective, disrespect does not have the power to define us unless we allow it. Stoic acceptance invites us to focus our energy and attention on what is truly within our reach, our own actions, our reactions, and our personal growth. When we become indifferent to disrespect, not in the sense of ignoring it, but in the sense of not allowing it to affect us deeply, we open ourselves up to a new way of living, where our inner peace is not determined by the whims of others. Therefore, by accepting disrespect as a reality of life, and by choosing not to allow it to contaminate our soul, we maintain our inner clarity and strength. This acceptance does not mean in any way that we should be complacent or passive in the face of injustice. Rather, it is a call to conscious action, to the deliberate choice of how to respond. By accepting that disrespect is part of the way, we can use each incident as an opportunity to practice self-mastery, to strengthen our capacity for discernment, and to focus on what really matters. Disrespect, when faced with this perspective, transforms from an insurmountable obstacle into an opportunity for personal growth. It challenges us to apply the knowledge we have gained, to reflect on past experiences, and to make wise and thoughtful decisions in the present. Developing acceptance also involves a deeper understanding of human nature. When we recognize that the disrespect of others often arises from their own insecurities, fears, and weaknesses, we gain a broader and more compassionate perspective. Instead of reacting with anger, we can respond with empathy, understanding that the way someone treats us often reflects more on them than on us. This understanding not only protects us emotionally, but also gives us the discernment we need to distinguish what is essential from what is superficial. Stoic acceptance is therefore a powerful tool for personal growth. It allows us to turn negative situations into valuable lessons, and it teaches us to focus on the things that are really in our control. When we adopt this mindset, we begin to realize that disrespect does not define us. What really matters is how we choose to respond to it. From this recognition, we can channel our energy into areas where we can truly make a difference, whether it's in strengthening our character, building healthier relationships, or pursuing our highest goals. Set clear boundaries. Stoicism, often misunderstood as a philosophy of passive acceptance, actually teaches a deep and powerful form of resistance. Far from encouraging complacency or blind submission, Stoicism guides us in the art of living with dignity, wisdom, and above all, with an unwavering firmness in the face of adversity. A crucial part of this philosophy is the ability to set and maintain clear boundaries in our interactions with others. When someone disrespects us, it is neither necessary nor appropriate to remain silent or react with outbursts of anger. Rather, true power lies in the ability to respond calmly, but with a firm conviction that leaves no doubt about our position. Setting clear boundaries is an act of self-respect. It means recognizing our own worth and not allowing others to cross the boundaries of what is acceptable in our treatment. Stoic wisdom teaches us that while we cannot control the actions of others, we do have complete control over how we allow them to treat us. When someone tries to disrespect us, we don't have to be passive. On the contrary, we must make it clear calmly and assertively that such behavior is unacceptable. This clarity is not only a defense of our dignity, but also a means of communicating to others that our self-respect is non-negotiable. The process of setting limits begins with self-knowledge. We must first understand what is acceptable to us, and where we draw the line between what we tolerate and what we cannot accept. By having this inner clarity, we can then communicate these boundaries to others effectively. When we find ourselves in situations where these limits are tested, the Stoic response is to maintain serenity, but with a firmness that reflects our unwavering conviction. Epictetus reminds us that we must not allow others to drag us down to their level. Instead, by setting boundaries, we raise the bar for interactions, showing that we won't be easily influenced or disrespected. One of the most powerful aspects of setting boundaries is the way we present ourselves when doing so. Eye contact, for example, is a silent but extremely effective tool in communicating our seriousness. Keeping a steady gaze without flinching conveys a clear message. We are sure of ourselves and will not tolerate disrespect. This lion's gaze, as many call it, is an outward manifestation of our inner strength. It is not about intimidating or coercing the other, but about asserting our position in a way that is both calm and powerful. By doing so, we are not only protecting our own dignity, but also sending a clear signal that we expect to be treated with respect, regardless of the circumstances. Setting boundaries also requires consistency. It is not enough to communicate our limits once and expect them to be respected forever. We need to be prepared to reaffirm them whenever necessary, while maintaining the calm and steadiness that are central characteristics of Stoicism. This does not mean that we are inflexible or rigid. It means that we understand the importance of maintaining respect in our interactions and are willing to take the necessary steps to ensure that this respect is maintained. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds us that the soul that sees itself is content to remain in its own place and with its own rules. By setting boundaries, we are in essence setting those rules and committing to live by them. On the other hand, setting boundaries does not mean that we become confrontational or that we seek to create conflicts. On the contrary, the true essence of this practice is the maintenance of peace and harmony in our lives. By defining and communicating our boundaries in a clear and serene manner, we can often prevent conflict from escalating and create an environment where mutual respect is the norm. The strength of our limits lies not in physical strength or aggressiveness, but in the quiet conviction that comes from the certainty of our own worth. Setting clear boundaries is a practice that reinforces our self-sufficiency and autonomy. By not allowing others to determine how we should feel or react, we remain true to our own principles and values. Stoicism teaches us that true freedom comes from within, and that freedom includes the power to define how we want to be treated. When we set boundaries and maintain them calmly and firmly, we are exercising that freedom in a way that not only protects our dignity, but also strengthens our ability to live on our own terms. Thus, when we encounter disrespect, we do not have to resort to resigned silence or uncontrolled anger. We can choose the middle path, the Stoic path, where we respond calmly, but with unbreakable firmness. By doing so, we not only preserve our inner peace, but also cultivate an environment where respect is reciprocated and interactions are based on a mutual understanding of value and dignity. Setting clear boundaries is therefore an act of self-care, self-respect, and wisdom. Think about yourself. The practice of reflecting on oneself is one of the most powerful keys to personal development and to the true understanding of the situations in which we find ourselves. Stoicism, with its emphasis on introspection and emotional self-sufficiency, teaches us that we are solely responsible for our judgments and reactions. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to give in to the temptation to blame others for our discomfort or anger. Many of us instinctively point fingers, believing that the blame must be anywhere but ourselves. But Stoicism invites us to take a step back and look inside ourselves in all honesty. Before blaming the other, we must ask ourselves, did I contribute to this situation? Was there anything I said or did that provoked this disrespect? This reflection is not an act of unfair self-accusation, but a practice of humility and self-knowledge. It is a way to take responsibility for our part in the conflict, if there is one, and to correct our own mistakes if necessary. When we adopt this reflective posture, we gain a clearer and more objective view of events. We realize that many times, the disrespect we experience may have been triggered by something we did or said, even if unintentionally. By acknowledging our own responsibility, we can avoid falling into the trap of victimization, where we see ourselves only as victims of the actions of others. Instead, we take control of our responses and empower ourselves to act more thoughtfully and fairly. This practice of constant reflection helps us develop greater self-awareness, which is essential for personal growth. It's important to remember that reflecting on yourself doesn't necessarily mean that we're always wrong, or that we should blame ourselves for all negative interactions. In many situations, we can conclude that our conduct was appropriate and that the disrespect was totally unjustified. However, even in these cases, reflection helps us strengthen our conviction that we are on the right path. It allows us to evaluate our actions objectively, without the veil of emotions, and to reaffirm our integrity and values. And in doing so, we prepare ourselves to deal with future situations with even more wisdom and resilience. The practice of healthy self-criticism also opens up the possibility of reparation. If, upon reflection, we realize that we have indeed made a mistake, we should not hesitate to admit it and apologize. For sincere apology can not only calm a tense situation, but also strengthen our relationships and build bridges where there was once disagreement. The humility to recognize our own mistakes is one of the hallmarks of a true practitioner of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself of the importance of being honest with oneself, of not being deceived by pride or vanity. This honesty is what allows us to grow and become better people. In addition, reflection on oneself helps us develop a greater understanding of others. When we recognize our own mistakes and limitations, we become more compassionate and less likely to judge others harshly. We understand that just like us, they are also susceptible to errors and failures. This does not mean that we should tolerate disrespect, but that we can approach such situations with a more open mind and a more understanding heart. This empathy, fueled by reflection, is what allows us to respond to disrespect in ways that promote peace and reconciliation, rather than fueling conflict. By practicing reflection on oneself, we cultivate a mind that is both critical and compassionate, both with others and with oneself. This practice helps us navigate through life with more balance and clarity, avoiding the pitfalls of impulsive reactivity and self-deception. We learn to see every interaction as an opportunity for learning and growth, rather than as a simple battle of egos. And in doing so, we come ever closer to the Stoic ideal of living according to reason and virtue. Therefore, instead of reacting impulsively or getting lost in accusations, we must first turn our attention inward. By reflecting on our own actions and motivations, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. And it is this understanding that will enable us to respond with wisdom, fairness, and dignity, regardless of external circumstances. Play with the situation. Humor, often underestimated as a response to disrespect, can be one of the most effective tools for dealing with tense situations. In Stoicism, we learn to remain calm and in control in any circumstance, and humor can be an extension of this philosophy, working as a bridge between the gravity of the situation and the lightness necessary to transform a conflict into an opportunity for learning and growth. When someone disrespects us, the instinctive response may be to retaliate, to try to prove our point with force or harsh words. However, a more strategic and at the same time compassionate approach is to respond with humor. This type of response is not an escape or denial of the problem, but a creative way to redirect the energy of the interaction. When we use humor in situations of disrespect, we are essentially demonstrating that we will not be easily shaken by the provocations of others. Imagine yourself in a situation where someone tries to destabilize you with an offense, and instead of reacting angrily, you respond with a witty joke. This moment of lightness has the power to disarm the other person, as they were not expecting such a carefree reaction. Humor, in this context, works as a kind of neutralizer. It reduces tension and often exposes the baselessness in the attempted offense. By responding with humor, you show that you own your emotions, that you have control over how you interpret and react to the words of others. This approach also reveals a sophistication in the management of emotions and in the understanding of social dynamics. By using humor, you're not just avoiding a conflict. You are subverting the expectation of those who tried to disrespect you. The insult, which would normally be aimed at eliciting a defensive response, is neutralized by an unexpected and intelligent reaction. This can cause discomfort in the offender, not because you fought back, but because they realize that your attack did not have the desired impact. Humor here is a way of showing that you are greater than disrespect, that you have the ability to turn something negative into positive, and that you are not willing to stoop to the level of those who try to offend you. Additionally, using humor in disrespectful situations can serve as a reminder to others and to yourself that life doesn't have to be taken so seriously that you allow small teases to ruin your day. Humor in this sense can be seen as a manifestation of inner freedom. It demonstrates that you have the ability to see beyond the insult, not to be consumed by it, and to keep a broader perspective. Responding with humor is a way of choosing to react in a way that preserves your peace of mind and fosters a lighter, more positive environment. However, it is crucial to understand that humor must be used with sensitivity and discernment. It should not be a way to minimize the seriousness of disrespect or to avoid dealing with important issues, but rather a tool to diffuse tension and make room for more productive interaction. Effective humor is one that, instead of hurting or ridiculing, elevates the conversation and brings everyone involved to safer ground. It can be a gesture of peace, a way to show that you don't take the insult personally and that you are willing to find a solution that benefits everyone. This practice of responding to disrespect with humor also reinforces your emotional intelligence and self-control. By choosing humor over anger or resentment, you demonstrate that you are not a slave to your emotions, but rather their master. This requires a certain presence of mind, an ability to perceive what is happening in the moment, and to deliberately choose a response that is constructive rather than reactive. Humor, when used well, is an expression of wisdom, as it reflects the ability to transform a negative situation into an opportunity for growth and strengthening relationships. Free yourself with forgiveness. Forgiveness, an often misunderstood virtue, is one of the fundamental pillars for achieving true inner peace and emotional freedom. In the heat of disrespect, when we feel hurt or wronged, the immediate reaction many of us experience is an outburst of anger, a desperate attempt to reassert our worth or to retaliate for the pain that has been inflicted on us. However, the Stoics teach us that the true path to peace does not pass through revenge but through forgiveness. This lesson, while difficult to accept and even more difficult to practice, offers one of the most profound personal transformations we can experience. Forgiveness, according to the Stoic perspective, is not an act of benevolence towards those who have offended us, but rather a gift that we offer ourselves. By forgiving, we release the weight of negative emotions that would otherwise continue to trap us in a vicious cycle of resentment and pain. Imagine anger as a chain that keeps us chained to the past, unable to move forward lightly and freely. Each time we refuse to forgive, we reinforce these currents, allowing hurt to continue to dominate our thoughts and influence our actions. On the other hand, by choosing forgiveness, we let go of these chains, freeing ourselves to move forward and live more fully. The Stoics, such as Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, emphasize that forgiveness must be practiced with discernment. It is not about forgiving recklessly or allowing disrespect to continue without consequence, but about forgiving with wisdom, compassion, and justice. This means that we choose not to carry the weight of resentment while taking the necessary steps to protect our dignity and well-being. This balance between compassion and justice is what makes Stoic forgiveness such a powerful virtue. It allows us to maintain our integrity while also cultivating inner peace. Another crucial point is that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a show of strength. In society, we often associate forgiveness with submission or giving in, as if forgiving were a way of putting ourselves in an inferior position. However, the Stoics show us that forgiveness is actually a form of victory. When we forgive, we show that we are strong enough not to be controlled by anger or the desire for revenge. We demonstrate that we have the power to choose how to react in a way that preserves our peace of mind and our emotional balance. Forgiveness is therefore a triumph over negative emotions, an affirmation of our ability to govern ourselves. In addition, forgiveness is a reward both for the spirit and for the body. Modern studies on psychology and emotional health indicate that the act of forgiving can have profoundly beneficial effects on our mental and physical health. It can reduce stress levels, improve sleep, and even strengthen our immune system. These benefits reflect the ancient wisdom of the Stoics, who understood that forgiveness is not only a moral virtue, but also a practice that promotes holistic well-being. By forgiving, we not only relieve the emotional burden of the past, but also create a healthier and more harmonious internal environment. It is important to note that forgiveness in its highest form is a process. Sometimes forgiveness is not immediate. It can take time, requiring reflection, understanding, and even the necessary detachment for emotions to calm down. Stoicism teaches us to be patient with ourselves in this process, not to force forgiveness ahead of time, but to work toward it with intention and perseverance. When we finally achieve forgiveness, it is not an act of sacrifice, but a true conquest. It is the culmination of an inner journey that brings us to a state of greater peace and clarity. When considering forgiveness, don't see it as a concession to those who have disrespected you, but as an affirmation of your own strength and resilience. Forgiveness is the ultimate act of freedom, where we choose to no longer be prisoners of the past, but masters of our present and future. It is the key that opens the doors to true happiness, not because it erases offenses, but because it frees us from the need to carry the weight of them. If you like this video, be sure to check out our other content, which is full of valuable insights and practices to transform your life. We have a series of videos that further delve into the concepts we've discussed here and offer practical tools for applying Stoicism in your daily life. Each of these videos is designed to help you achieve a more balanced and mindful life. And before you leave, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below sharing what you've learned or if you've been through any of the situations we've discussed. Your experience and feedback are important to us and can help other viewers find the same kind of inspiration and guidance that you found here. I'll wait for you in the next video.